Arise, awake and stop, not until the goal is reached.
उठो, जागो और तब तक नहीं रुको जब तक लक्ष्य ना प्राप्त हो जाए. These beautiful words were quoted by our youth icon स्वामी विवेकानंद जी.
अब हम आमंत्रित करना चाहेंगे NMO नेशनल एग्जीक्यूटिव कमेटी स्पेशल इन्विटेज, प्रेसिडेंट मेडिकल एथिक्स एंड रजिस्ट्रेशन बोर्ड, नेशनल मेडिकल कमीशन (NMC), former director of prestigious National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, NIMHANS, Bangalore, Dr. B. Gangadhar.
सर, हमें आलोकित करें अपने विचारों से. विषय भारतीय चिकित्सा स्नातकों का राष्ट्रीय चरित्र, नेशनल कैरेक्टर ऑफ इंडियन मेडिकल ग्रेजुएट. मैं निवेदन करूंगा डॉक्टर पवन सर से कि डॉक्टर बी एन गंगाधर सर को टोकन ऑफ लव दें. सर प्लीज.
सभी से अनुरोध है कृपया तालियों में कमी ना करें.
मैं निवेदन करूंगा डॉक्टर बी एन गंगाधर सर से कि सर हमें आलोकित करें इस विषय पर.
सुप्रभात. Respected chairpersons and distinguished delegates, I deem it an honor to be here to share a few thoughts on a very abstract but yet very profound issue of the national character of a medical graduate. I thank the organizers for inviting me to this conference. In my over 45 years of participating in conferences, this is perhaps the first time I am addressing in a conference without using slides. So is the subject. Coming to the subject itself, when I think of national character, nothing else strikes to me than the shloka of the NMO. It says very clearly, I don't want the physical prosperity, I enjoy serving. This is precisely what a national character or the culture of our country. We always looked at a spiritual growth and not a physical prosperity. And this applies, of course, to all of us who have been doctors trained to execute this very noble task of healing people. In fact, the very profession is a distinct advantage for us to achieve this spiritual transcendence. And I wish we all look at our profession more for the others, we live for others, than a job which helps us to make a livelihood from serving the others. I live for serving others, but not necessarily make a livelihood by serving others. I agree that livelihood is important. I am trained, educated to be able to continue with a job so that I can look after myself. But I suppose this is what is natural. Prakriti. But we obviously have to move beyond this. We have to dedicate ourselves for the benefit of the society. As we see, the society is something, our family. So when we are doing so, we have to progress beyond this mere natural life and evolve ourselves, and this process we call it as samskruti. And this change from prakriti to samskruti brings us the national character. In fact, this process takes into account inculcating some very, very important ingredients in our professional life. Those characteristics which are relevant to our profession is the vritti dharma, the dharma of medical service, which says, of course, many things. Very importantly, we need to have that love and compassion to the person who is seeking help. And that is precisely what the National Medical Commission has now chosen to formalize in its education to the medical graduates: the attitudes, the ethics, and the communication which have to be built so that this process of changing the individual from a mere doctor to a noble physician. And this change includes change in my attitude. I see this person as my own self. I see myself in him. Atmavat sarvabhuteshu ya pashyati sapanditaha. I see in others myself. That develops into a compassion, and I have to help him. And when I am helping him, just as much as when I receive help, I wish that my self-respect and dignity is also protected. And of course, many other things. Confidentiality, my care of my illness, etc., etc. But essentially, when I am seeing myself in others, just as much I wish to be treated when I am like that, if I can look into the way in which I approach this individual, that makes a change in my approach to this individual, and I see myself in him, and that leads to a attitudinal change of compassion. And when that is there, which drives my service, the service has to be perfect. This perfection is built not merely as giving a lot of knowledge in my MBBS or whatever is the course that I am doing, medical course, but also give me all the skills that are required. And that's another issue that the National Medical Commission has been paying attention to: competence building. Not just knowledge, not just skills, but a synchrony of the two to give the competence to the individual so that he is able to deliver the deed as perfectly, as accurately as possible. In fact, this perfection is actually the yoga, which is the national treasure and the core of our national culture. Yoga karmasu kaushal. Being perfect in my actions is yoga, and being perfect, being competent, being accurate in my medical profession is also a yoga, and that is a spiritual way of life. And I believe that a national character, the core of the national character in our country, in our culture, is building that spiritual strength. Where does that spiritual strength, where does that account of spiritual transcendence increase? That happens, of course, as Swami Vivekananda has been saying, be good and do good. And how do I do that? Of course, all these things I have mentioned, being compassionate, being ethical, being accurate, this is all one part of it. But all is driven by the fact, in the second stanza of the shloka, Praninam Arthinasham. Kame Dukkataptanam Praninam Arthinasham. I only live for the benefit of others. And if we perhaps keep reminding ourselves that this is what we have come into this profession for, I think our character is built. And in this regard, I have to perhaps narrate a small anecdote from Mahabharata. Many of you might have heard it. Vyasa, who wrote the Mahabharata, asks Lord Ganesha to do the stenography. He asks him to write everything. Everything is written, completed. So many pages of Mahabharata. At the end of it, Vyasa says it's over. Ganesha is very angry. You made me write so many things, so many pages. He starts having an argument with Vyasa. And Vyasa says, look, I am getting older. Since I have written so many things in the past, I have become tired. So I called you to help me out. What did you write? I have written so much, you couldn't have written so many things yourself. So Vyasa takes him to the library where he has written all those Vedas, the Upanishads, etc., etc. He shows him all those things. What are these for? This is not a story. Valmiki wrote the Rama's story. I wrote the Krishna's story and the Mahabharata. These are not stories at all. Who will read this? Why should they read this? Then the Vyasa says, these will actually help you to transcend, to get your moksha. You follow all these practices in one's life, you will actually elevate yourself. You will be a sound, well-balanced and a mature individual who will seek salvation into the gods, etc., etc., etc. It starts telling him. Ganesha looks at the whole thing. He says, be assured, no one will read this. This is like a honorable Supreme Court judgment running into 400, 500 pages. Nobody would be interested in reading it. They need to read what is called as the executive summary. And we also, when some of you could be teachers here, the medical student or a PG writes a long history, long examination. Finally, we keep paying attention to that formulation and the diagnosis. In the same way, Ganesha expects people, if going to read these things, are not going to read these things, you give them an executive summary. Be brief in that executive summary. So Vyasa says, okay, all that is expected to be done in one's life for this moksha prapti, for this spiritual transcendence, I will condense it into one shloka. In that, only half a shloka will be responsible for the entire lot I have written. It is condensed. That half a shloka gives the summary of what all that I have written here. Shlokardhena pravakshyami yaduktam grantha kotibhihi paropakara punyaya papaya paripidana. In the second half of the shloka, it is the same thing that is written in our logo also. We live for this paropakara, and that builds my spiritual quotient. That is the remittance into my account. And why do I do that? I believe that I am going to be reborn. If I don't have to be reborn, I have to be reborn with a lot of punya into my account. Punya is a word which no other culture talks about. That's a different issue. I'm not going to go about it at this point of time. Our national character is to evolve spiritually, and this profession has given us a sound opportunity to be able to do this. And NMO, precisely what is the logo and what is the motto of the NMO. And we are all lucky We are not merely doctors, we are members of NMO, which makes us understand this difference between just being a job seeker to being a professional, not being a person who is earning a livelihood by being a doctor, to a person who is living for others. If we can make this change in ourselves, and I'm sure we, being members of the NMO and being doctors in this country, is perhaps best is achieved in that process. And I wish all of you the very best, and I want to wish all the organizers all the success in this conference, completion of this 42nd conference of the National Medical Conference. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.